Hey, listeners, this is Wendy Haddad. This episode is packed with information, but there may be topics we didn't have time to get into or might have even missed. We'd love to hear from you as we're planning for future episodes, and you can do so by navigating to aka.ms/low code topic request. You can also participate live in the discussion now in our Low Code Approach LinkedIn community. We'd sure love to have you join us. And now, on to the show.
Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of the Low Code Approach. I'm Sean Feeney, a Senior Product Marketing Manager on the Power Platform team, and I'm joined by...
I'm Wendy Haddad. I'm a Senior Cloud Solution Architect and a former Microsoft customer, and I am joined by...
It is I, General Jocelyn Pinchal, Senior Child and Senior Product Manager of Power Platform and Copilot Security. I have a story for you all to start today. So, as a wee new hire, I was reorged to a faraway land after signing my initial offer with Power Automate, and I went to my new VP's all hands for the first time. And in his all hands, he calls out that he is a Rutgers alumni. For those of you who don't know, I grew up in New Jersey, so I took this as an opportunity to slide in my new VP's DMs, aka Teams chat, and say, "Hello, new VP. I'm Jocelyn. You're from Jersey, and I'm from Jersey, and we're going to be best friends." With us, we have that VP, Nirav Shah. Nirav, how are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Excited to be here. I guess, yeah, Rutgers, go Scarlet Knight.
Awesome. So, Nirav, there are few constants in tech, but one constant is reorgs. And with that always comes rebrandings of teams. So when I joined your team, we were called Dataverse. I see you got the Dataverse hoodie on. But recently, we took on a new name, Back. What is Back? What does Back entail? What is Back responsible for? What do you lead, Nirav?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And so as we think about just the moment in technology that we're at and kind of the evolution of what's been happening across the industry, as well as kind of what the team's been responsible for over the years, we really had evolved quite a bit from just being the Dataverse organization. When we think about what customers are trying to do and achieve today with technology, we're really focused on how we're going to go leverage AI, building out these agents to go solve enterprise business problems. And as we looked across the organization, what we're focused on, we're really seeing that we're far more than just Dataverse. Right? We have obviously Dataverse as that enterprise grade solution for all your business data, but we also had things like our AI tooling infrastructure with AI Builder and AI tools inside of Copilot Studio. We had the connector ecosystem and how we're bringing all of that enterprise data across the landscape into the agent ecosystem to solve these business problems. And ultimately, all of those security and managed platform capabilities that allow customers to scale and run mission critical solutions at scale really quickly and easily. And so as we thought about how all those pieces fit together, we really took a step back and said, what we're really building out is this agent cloud. We're building out that managed infrastructure through data, AI, and infrastructure with trust and security at its foundation and enabling every customer to go do that at scale with their solutions. And so that's where this idea of the agent cloud for business and industry solutions came from.
And if you could just define BAC for us, that would be helpful. So what does BAC stand for first?
Yeah, so BAC is the Business and Industry Copilot Agent Cloud.
It's an acronym within an acronym.
Yeah, we love three-letter acronyms, and so this is like we're just stacking them together. Yeah.
The Microsoft speak is real. Well, that's super interesting because you are, especially with the data, the governance, the agentic future, you are poised to really see what's both changing in the past in our landscape of technology, but also looking ahead because you're really driving that change in the industry. So maybe let's start by looking behind. In the last 6 months, what have been some of those major industry shifts that you've seen or that you've been driving toward as you're crafting this agentic future?
Yeah, I mean, I think you started right there with it, right? This idea that agents are really going to play a critical role in how organizations run moving forward is such a key part of where we start. Like this idea that, everyone's going to have their co-pilot that's going to support them, understand their role, what they do day in, day out, and be that personal assistant. That was a great starting point for where we wanted to go in this AI transformation, of really thinking about this agentic future and how do we go enable customers to go solve their business problems and optimize how they deliver the results that they want really became kind of a core piece of where we're going. And so if you think about kind of that transformation of that, where we're going, this idea that Copilot becomes that UI for AI, helping support this orchestration of all these agents, and then going and building out these agents that are domain specific, that really are experts in specific business processes and roles, that are really driving those business outcomes, becomes such a key part of it. And so when we think about the obviously the models and what they're capable of, and just us scratching the surface
Mm.
of what they can do today, really starts becoming a critical piece of where we're going. Then, if we look even further out and what we've seen over the last couple of months, this idea of MCP and the model context protocol, really kind of how that's really taking shape across the industry as a way to bring together a lot of enterprise assets and plug those and make them available inside of your AI solutions. Has really taken hold in an interesting way. And then how you build that together with, again, a lot of the classic systems that you've got with your data. How do you transform data into knowledge? How do you go take those business processes and orchestrate them through your agents? There's this really interesting shift of how taking a lot of what has existed historically across our applications, our automation, and rethinking a lot of those constructs to make them truly available for agentic solutions.
You mentioned a lot here, so kind of processing this. We just had an event where we talked about how our research is really thinking about how the organizations are evolving. And in the future, you said, Copilot's the UI for AI, right? And you it's talked about how we want people to have this cluster team of agents that they're managing. That's a skill set shift and a different way of working. So as a leader, within our organization, both how are you seeing or helping companies make that shift? And within your own organization, how are you leading them to make that shift in their day to day workflow with these tools?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, if you think about what AI is really enabling, it's democratizing expertise, right, in a unique way that we've never seen before. And so, what it really enables us across really every organization is take that collective expertise that exists across the organization and make it available for everyone to participate in. And so what it really where a lot of that transformation then starts is, where does that expertise exist? What is
Mm.
constraining a lot of the value that you can drive as an organization? How do we go then use the capabilities, the technology to go move that forward? So it starts by just taking a step back and saying, what are the processes that we're running? Where could we go really optimize and drive greater value and business results from leveraging the technology, understanding that process and mapping it out, and then saying, how does the technology apply to it? How do we use things like Copilot Studio, Dataverse, the AI tools that we've got, mapping those into the process, and then driving a lot of that momentum across the organization. So it really starts by just taking that step back. And so, across the Asian Cloud organization, a lot of things we talk about is exactly that. Where are we constrained in the value that we're able to deliver for the business, for our customers? What is that constraint? Often it's going to be that expertise that exists within a subset of the organization. How do we then go use the technology through the ingredients and the tools that we've got to go really expand the opportunity to go accelerate the value that we're able to provide?
Nirav, you mentioned earlier that security is, foundational, right? This is built on trust. Can you go a little bit deeper into what does that mean for Dataverse? What does that mean for organizations that are applying agentic, agents in their organization?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, right? When you think about security and trust, really, because I think about it often in the context of trust and being able to trust that the solution is going to both do what you need it to do and do it with the guardrails that you expect. And when we think about what it means in this world of AI, right? It's obviously all those things that you've historically had in terms of authentication, of making sure the right people are able to use the right systems, the authorization associated with it, making sure that they've got the right access controls, the policies, things like data loss prevention policies, and how that integrates all of the networking controls and data protection controls that we've got. But it also then starts extending into things like, what does responsible AI look like across the stack? How do we prevent things like malicious prompts from coming in and abusing the system? And so this idea that the definition of trust even morphs quite a bit in this world of agentic solutions. How do we extend a lot of those governance controls, those security controls, all the way through to what the agents are doing? What are the right access control policies for the agent? When should it be authorization rules on what the agent is doing versus when should it be authorization on behalf of users that the agent is taking action on behalf of? And this is some of the great things that we've already got on the platform that we're able to bring forward into these agentic solutions. When you think about the rich authorization controls and security controls that we've got in Dataverse for all of that mission critical business data, all of that naturally moves forward into these agentic solutions. You're able to capitalize on a lot of those investments that you've already made in the platform as you're building out these agentic solutions. You have to start from scratch. Same on things like the data loss prevention policies. I mean, again, just building on a lot of the investments that have already been made if you've been building on the platform and bringing those forward into your agents, managing all of that through our security, really getting that left to right view of your security posture, extending that all the way through to the trust posture of your solutions with analytics and visibility into what your agents are doing and performing and how they're doing that.
Security is huge, and rightfully so. And when we bring in agents, we often talk about shared responsibility, right? And now we are having many different touch points with this. In your view, as organizations are preparing, deploying, implementing agents, and now they are having to take a real close look at their security posture, where does that shared responsibility blur, especially when you have security engineers on the purview side, you've got admins in Power Platform that are applying data loss prevention policies there, and the same thing goes for Microsoft Admin Center too. As we take governance controls and we take security controls, and then also just like you said, the trust in the data that you're using within Dataverse, how does that shift that shared responsibility for organizations now? And how do they understand what are the skill sets that are required amongst my organization to be successful when I'm doing something like this?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, right? Because if you think about what we've historically looked at across the Power Platform in particular and how that manifests, that shared responsibility has always existed, right? There's the idea of zoning your different solutions, understanding what types of policies and controls you want to set for the different types of solutions. I think this is really an evolution of that with additional controls and guardrails in terms of what you want the different types of agents to be able to do. Really getting back to that idea of agent entitlements and how you want that to flow into those ultimately what the agents are doing on behalf of the organization, on behalf of teams, on behalf of users. And so that's really, I think, the fundamental shift that exists is extending a lot of those controls and kind of the shared responsibility into the guardrails and controls you want to set for the agents themselves and not just the makers and developers building on top of the platform, because the end result is not person necessarily sitting in front of an application taking action against all those controls. Now it's an agent doing that. And so the mind shift is really this idea that there isn't necessarily always a person that's going to be on the other end of this. It's going to be an agent taking a lot of those actions. And so how do you want to extend those guardrails to determine what you want an agent to be able to do, what you don't want it to do? Where do you need
Yeah.
a human in the loop to kind of take an action or approve an action on behalf of an agent? And so there's some really interesting nuance there in terms of the shift of how those guardrails then get applied, and really some new controls in terms of how that manifests from a user perspective in terms of approving and guardrailing actions on behalf of agents.
I'm gonna shift for a second because I could get stuck talking on security for the rest of the episode and then
Your
another
favorite
episode.
topic, yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
of course, it keeps me employed, Nirav. I would like to talk about extensibility because I think, one, I think Microsoft is the best for a number of reasons, but I think one of the reasons that we are the best is because of our extensibility. You can go and use another solution, another provider, another product outside of our ecosystem, but you still have richness in coming back to us. So, coming from the connectors world, we have connectors, we have APIs, right? But since then, there has been such an evolution with knowledge, with action, and now you touched on it for a second, and I'm going to make you go back to it with MCP. Tell me, how have you seen knowledge and extensibility evolve over the last 18 months, and what do you see as next?
You got to define MCP, Jocelyn.
Sorry, model context protocol. I think he defined it earlier in the episode, though.
Well, let me maybe explain what it is, right? Just beyond the spelling out what the letters mean. So, model context protocol is exactly that. Right? It is a protocol. It is a contract of how you can bring resources and tools into an AI solution. But it is not an implementation. It is really a way of defining a standardized way to bring resources, data, tools, actions, etc., into an AI solution. And that really is a fundamental shift because if you think back to where we were 6 months, a year ago, we were creating a lot of these mechanisms to integrate a lot of these systems into AI solutions, but there wasn't a standardized way of doing it. And now, as we're seeing the industry start really aligning to this idea of using Model Complex Protocol, MCP, as a way to plug a lot of these systems into your AI solutions, it's changing kind of the way extensibility really works for solutions, right? All of a sudden, you can build you can build an MCP server, right? A system that implements the protocol and make that system available to these MCP clients, something that understands how to leverage something that speaks the protocol as part of its orchestration and execution chain from an AI solution standpoint, and really start building these end-to-end solutions across a standardized interface of what that looks like. And so if you think about what that really opens up is this ability to start taking all of these vast resources that we have across our technology landscape, things like Dataverse. How do we start really making it possible for any MCP client to start utilizing all of that rich value that we have inside of Dataverse and making it part of your AI solutions? These connectors, or how do you start really leveraging a lot of that, the huge ecosystem that we have today across the Power Platform, making that all available through the standardized protocol and really making it available for any AI solution across any AI client, including Copilot Studio, to start utilizing a lot of that value quickly and easily. Even things like building out prompts. This we started talking about it like as a kind of a vibe coding kind of model within the platform, right? This idea that you can start using kind of natural language and really spend kind of nest some of these MCP constructs across a lot of that enterprise data and knowledge that you've got through connectors, through Dataverse. Because honestly, the enterprise RAG is hard, right? Like trying to pull all those pieces together. A lot of the data that's sitting out there in the ecosystem today wasn't built necessarily for a lot of these patterns that AI solutions need. But because we've got this standardized protocol that we can build the platform to, we can start doing a lot of that scaffolding automatically on behalf of customers so that they can get a lot more value through the agents that they're building inside of Copilot Studio through, Azure Foundry on top of a lot of these existing sources of high value enterprise data and processes into the ecosystem. So that's really fundamentally shifting a lot of what extensibility looks like in the world of AI and building up these agents.
I love that you said the thing about built for AI, right? Built for the next generation of AI readiness and enterprise grade. Because Sean and I, often as the faces behind the people writing the abstracts, the titles of all of the sessions, we always try to weave in there something like built for the age of AI. I feel like, that's just marketing fluff. No, we mean it. We mean that the things that we are going to be talking about, the solutions that we are discussing, are truly what you need in order to build that foundation for AI readiness.
Yeah, I mean, we see it, right, in the solutions that are being built, right? It's really easy to go throw a bunch of stuff at the AI, and you can get a lot of value through it. But like, if you really want it to be repeatable, scalable, always available with a lot of the security and governance controls, like, you do have to think about some of the shifts that are happening here, and how you go utilize some of these new technology patterns and integrate those into those existing systems to really get that value. And I think as we look at a lot of the investments that we're making in the Asian cloud, in Dataverse, in the managed platform connectors and whatnot, a lot of what we're doing is really starting to take a lot of these building blocks that we've had that have been great for building these low code applications or automation and evolving them so that they're by default just enabled for AI. Right? One of my favorites is some of the things that we've done with our tabular connectors that exist inside of the Power Platform, how we've evolved those to really start doing a lot of the heavy lifting that needs to happen behind the scenes, so that you can integrate those in your RAG, your retrieval augmented generation process, so you can get more value from agents over that data without having to do all that scaffolding plumbing behind the scenes, leveraging a lot of the infrastructure services that you need to integrate over that data to ultimately make it valuable to run in the patterns that you'd expect agents to run with. Again, that's us doing a lot of what we've always done across the platform, right? Removing a lot of that scaffolding, a lot of the building blocks, and really enabling people to go build ultimately the solution that they need to drive business value, spending less time on infrastructure, building out infrastructure, managing infrastructure, hooking things together, and instead spending much more time solving business problems and ultimately driving results for their team and organization.
You basically alluded to this just now in terms of the value that we have, because you can build an agent in any of our competitors' tools, but the value that we're bringing is you have an agent to get grounded in your business data that has access to your context. And with connectors, to Jocelyn's point, you can extend into other systems as well. Can we get a little more specific? Can you talk to me about knowledge versus actions? We keep changing that landscape a little bit. That's an evolving. So how do we get here? Where are we going? How are we thinking about this and differentiate this for our customers? Because I know there's some confusion, and it'd be great to hear from you where we're going.
Great question. And we ourselves, transparently, we've kind of gone back and forth on the terminology and how to really reconcile the capabilities. And so the way I tend to think about it is, if you think about what AI has really enabled, beyond kind of this democratizing expertise, it's given us a deep reasoning engine that can process gobs of information to decide a path forward. The thing that the models have today is they're trained on really the public data that's out there and available. The models don't know by default anything that's relevant or specific to your organization, your business, your processes, etc. And so what we think of knowledge is really how do we augment what the models understand and know with additional context and data that it can reason over. It's really augmenting the reasoning engine with additional information and data that is relevant for what the AI needs to achieve, right? And so that's really this idea of data transforms from really being this reactive source of information to knowledge that can be reasoned over to make decisions through the AI. Now, ultimately, once you reason over what needs to happen, you want to take an action, you want to move a business process forward. And that's really what actions are. It's what is the agent or the AI allowed to do? Well, what are the next steps it can take? Right. And so if you think about what we all do, right, we have shared context and information. That's how we drive our own decision making. And based on that, we go take action to move something forward, to take it to the next step. That's really foundationally what we've tried to do with the constructs of knowledge and actions, or tools really, in a way, is we've tried to provide a way to augment the reasoning engine with stuff that is very specific to what that AI solution needs to do, and then what it should do based on what it reasons over.
I think there can be a bias toward agents that take action as the only agents that provide value. And so, as you are working with companies, is that true? Do you find that that is really the future and we need to focus on agentic actions? Or do you still see value in more of those declarative agents that's, generating insights based on your knowledge and your data source?
I think they're both very relevant in the future, right? It's really about, again, if we go back to some of what we talked about earlier, it's what is the business process that you're trying to optimize? What is the result you're trying to achieve? In many cases, there are situations where you just need to be able to provide people the ability to find information more easily in a way that's relevant to them. And so, read only kind of agents that provide the ability to go find things that are relevant to them in a way that makes sense, and customized to their role, their organization, their team. That's certainly a solution that exists. Now, more and more, as we look at what's happening across the industry, is people are really looking to transform their business processes through these agents, and that typically does mean you have to be able to enable them to take action, because ultimately, if you want to go deliver an end result, there's going to be something that triggers an agent to go do something. It's going to go reason over what's happening, and then it's ultimately going to go move the system forward by taking an action. And ultimately, as we think about even kind of taking a step back, and what we're starting to see customers really start doing is building out these teams of agents, right? So it's not just an individual agent that runs a business process, but they're starting to collaborate and integrate with one another, hand off to one another in terms of what it means to run a more complete business process across the organization, across the team. And this is one of those places where we think things like Dataverse really play an interesting role, because it provides that common backend that enables these agents to collaborate in a seamless way, because it is a shared backend across these agents. And so they can use kind of that shared context, that shared data, that shared knowledge with all of that security and compliance and access control that exist to then start orchestrating and collaborating through that system. One of the great examples I recently saw was a partner of ours, Valrada. They've built out the solution that they call Shift Lens, and it's really about enabling organizations to go run through a set of agents the ability to respond to last minute changes in staffing of shifts for organizations. Typically, when someone's out sick last minute and they need to kind of find a replacement. And so what they've done is they've used Dataverse as this shared backend across multiple different agents. That the first one really being an email comes in where an employee notifies the organization that they're going to be out sick and they're not going to be able to take the shift that they were originally scheduled to do, and that gets an agent running and kind of updating the system, saying that that shift is open and needs to be staffed for the upcoming period. And so that gets that first part of the process going. And then they have another agent kind of collaborating with that first agent that recognizes, hey, the shift is now available and open. We got to go staff it. And so it triggers that second agent through kind of, again, that shared backend, where it then starts looking at, okay, who's available for that staff or for that shift, identifies candidates based on various parameters and business rules that they've got, and sends a request out to manager on, here are the people available, here's who I suggest, do you want to approve this person for that shift? And so it's a really clever way of kind of, again, using that shared backend to enable these agents to collaborate, using a lot of the ability to have that shared data, shared context, the triggers and the notifications across the system, the authorization and policies of understanding organizational structure and approval structure that Dataverse provides today for a lot of these business processes.
That's incredible. And it's far exceeding the personal productivity that like maybe the more conversational based agents to like these fully autonomous teams of agents, which is incredible to me. We're getting the sign from our producer that we need to wrap. So I do apologize because we could talk forever. But I do want to close on one question though. Build. There's so much going on. Nirav, can you please tell us what to look out for? If I'm an attendee, registered online or in person, what should I look out for?
Yeah, I mean, we've got tons of amazing announcements and great new capabilities really across the board. So if you're looking for the future of building out agentic solutions for your organization, there's no shortage of opportunities to lean in. My personal favorite will be my session where we're going to go deeper into a lot of the things that I was just talking about and really how that's evolving to build out these enterprise grade agents across really that agent cloud solution for anyone that wants to look at how do you use data, knowledge, prompts on top of that, robust managed platform. There's so much stuff, honestly, that's going on that we can't even fit it all into build. And so there's going to be tons of additional digital content as well. Be on the lookout because we're just going to be pumping out so many new things and exciting content that's going to unleash a whole new class of capabilities for really every customer to go build out amazing agent and AI solutions across their organization. So check it out. You won't be sorry.
That is awesome. You heard it from Nirav. You got to build an agent to decipher all the things that are coming out of build. I think that is absolutely fantastic.
Sounds like a brilliant idea, actually.
Well, actually, we should make one and then share it amongst everyone. Thank you so much, Nirav, for your time. I really, really appreciate you coming on and giving us all the information on back and what's going on with agents and Copilot. And it is huge. And there's a lot to learn. We'll have so much in the show notes for this episode. This was amazing. Thank you.
But wait, Sean, the most important question of the episode. Nirav, if you had to pick, would you pick a New York pizza or a New York bagel?
Whew. I will say New York bagels are more readily available in the Seattle area. I have not found a good slice of New York pizza here, and so
you haven't gone to Sean's house.
Yeah,
I'm sticking with pizza.
Wise.
That's a very wise selection. Yes, I like that.
Thank you for coming, Nirav.
Thank you, Nirav.
Thank you all. Really appreciate it. Take care.